Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. It's an easy reminder for me to look back that we've been doing this show for 14 years and that I've lived here in Moore County since 1999. And my guest today I have known since 2001, which is crazy to me, and it seems like yesterday.
Time flies, doesn't it?
All of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, oh my gosh, this is where I live, this is my home. And you think you know people, and you think you only know them in a 5 or 7 year window, and you go back a couple of decades, and where did all the time go?
Yep.
And when I first met Torin Wright, who is my guest for the hour, he helped assist me with a concert at what was then known, I guess, as the Robert E. Lee Auditorium at Southern Pines at Pinecrest. And I got to know him a little bit and got to see him as a teacher, as a role model, as a mentor to a lot of students. Well, Torin has been in Moore County for about 26 years. He's had a very distinguished career as a teacher, choral director, production manager, has been involved intimately with a lot of the students who today, many of them are probably getting married, have graduated from college, and what Torin has left in his wake, and it's not a wake, but when he was on the show, or Torin, I should say, when you were on the show a little over a year ago, you retired from your teaching position, your education role, and I likened you to the Richard Dreyfuss character in the movie Mr. Holland's Opus. And every time I think of you, I think of that. And it was a movie that I guess you can probably see today on Netflix or whatever, about a very talented teacher who left indelible impressions on generations of students over his life career of teaching life lessons and using music as the hook. And it was a celebration of his life. Well, over a year ago, we had you and Susan on, and I had no idea that we would be back here a year later talking about a chapter 2, so to speak, in your career. Because I remember talking to you and I'm thinking, you are too young to retire. You're too vital. And I said, how's he going to pull this off? He's going to get bored. He's going to be climbing the walls. But you're smiling because you had a plan in place. I just didn't know about it.
I did. Susan and I had talked about it for quite some time before the retirement was announced. And so while we didn't know exactly how it would roll out and be successful, we knew we had every intention to go from my career as a teacher into the next chapter, as you mentioned. And I literally went from the classroom on a Monday and went into the new workforce on Tuesday, and I haven't stopped.
So I'm a big believer in serendipity, and a couple of weeks ago, and this is how this all came about, I had my brother and I had 2 very close friends of mine in town from Atlanta and Philadelphia for a 3-day golf weekend. And everybody had their flight schedules, and they were here for 3 days, and it was a weekend of bonding. And my friend from Philadelphia, Chris, he had to play golf that Sunday morning at Mid-Pines, and he had a 6 p.m. flight or something like that going back to Philadelphia. But he was used to being in an urban area, picking up the phone, calling an Uber driver, and having the driver show up. Well, he hadn't done that, and he thought it was just a question of a phone call. So he had no ride to the airport, and I had a bad back issue, and I couldn't drive him. So I literally am walking through the Mid Pines golf course. Dorothy, this is truly serendipitous. And, I'm checking my phone for messages, and it's about 10:30 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm scrolling through Facebook, and boom, what do I see? Just appear on my screen. Wright Time Deliveries LLC, Torin Wright. And I read through, and I had not seen it or been aware of it before. And I saw what some of his, the things was that he offered the services. So I called him before the guys teed off, and we got to talking and rehashing a little bit, and lo and behold, Torin showed up late that afternoon, about 3:30 or 4 o'clock. You probably had a chance to spend some time with Chris in the car talking.
I did. Great conversation.
Great guy.
Yes.
Chris is about 15 or 16 years my junior, but we met at a time long ago. Not only did you take Chris to the airport, you that following morning you came by my house and took my buddy from Atlanta back to the airport as well. So all of a sudden, this is how we got together again. So you got to fill me in and tell me what the thought process was that got you from your teaching to where you are today, and talk a little bit about Wright Time Deliveries and your second chapter.
Okay. So I guess to fill in some of the gaps from our conversation just before I left the classroom, Susan and I have enjoyed being empty nesters now for a few years. My son is the youngest of our two. He's 21. He's going into his senior year at App State in the nursing program. My daughter's 25, and she's married. She lives out in Dallas. So the time that we spend together in our marriage now is different than when we had kids and we were busy chasing their schedules. So during the summer months, when the kids were no longer in the house, I'm the type of guy that got to do something. So usually I have 2 months off during the school year, and I got to do something.
Right.
I can sit still for about the first 2 or 3 weeks, then I got to do something. So it had been brought to my attention that there were things out there that were app-related, gig-related, in the gig economy that are in Moore County, such as Instacart, such as DoorDash, such as Uber Eats. And I started dabbling with them and enjoyed it. It was a nice way to spend my my time. Actually found out the ins and outs of how to do it by reading many books on the gig economy, and learned how to be a 1099 employee and the bells and whistles that go with that to make sure that it was something that I was in line with accounting, but also could possibly be lucrative. And lo and behold, when I started doing the calculations and realized once I draw a pension, there wasn't much risk because I had my medical and I had pension. So really no risk if I were to retire. Mm-hmm. So I chose to retire, knowing on day one that I would go out into this new workforce. So then it became a time to set up the LLC, and we are no strangers to LLCs, Susan and I, because we've had about 3 LLCs here in Moore County in the past. And so we set up the LLC, and then with that it was, okay, let's sit down and write the mission and vision. And, you start to articulate what you're really after. And one of the nice things about working the apps is that I learned where the need was for our county. And when it comes to the transportation side, because the business is called Wright Time Deliveries, and we specialize in parcels, delivering parcels and delivering people. So really there's the crux, because in our county there is a need for both. Mm-hmm. And I don't know of any other business that provides both sides of that coin. And so we're really unique in that setting. And so that was really where we were at, trying to find the budget-friendly vehicle for our county. And as you mentioned, your friend had a hard time finding the Uber.
Very hard time.
That right there is a huge portion of my business, particularly during the summer months, when golfing is so common here. It is very common, and I've heard this from the Carolina Hotel, as well. It is very common for golfers to come into the area and be able to get to the area fairly easily, because it is easy to get an Uber from the airports regionally.
In Raleigh or Charlotte.
Very easy. But it's not nearly as easy, because there may be only 6 of us Uber drivers, and I drive Uber as a 1099. When my business isn't currently have any gigs, I'll turn on the apps. Right. So I know from being a driver, getting to know the different drivers out there, how many of us there are. And I would say there's about 6 of us Uber drivers in total. But if they do what I do, and they do the shopping apps and such, or they do Uber Eats, they're not driving Uber at the time. And so even though you might have 6 regular locals doing Uber, you don't have 6 people driving any one time at any given time. So there is a need, and I find on Sunday afternoons particularly, that people will call in with an emergency need in the afternoon trying to get out of town because they didn't expect to be stuck. And so then really this is where I love doing what I do for that portion of the demographic that I serve, is that I'm that bridge, because it can get pretty pricey real quickly. But I structure myself not to do that. I'm doing this out of the desire to fill that gap with being the exclusive budget friendly solution to our transportation and delivery service.
I'm interested because to me you're a unicorn of sorts, because of who you are and what you've done and your perspective. And I could just imagine when you met my friend Chris from Philadelphia. I have a long history with him. I think I met him when he was 15 or 16. He was working at the St. David's Golf Club in Philadelphia, and he would caddy for me. And he was at that impressionable age where I maybe had too much of an influence on him, and it may not have all been positive, I'm not sure. But he came back to visit, so I guess it was okay. But I'm sure that the conversation that you had in the vehicle from Mid-Pines on up to RDU was probably something that was gratifying to both of you, from his background and your background, and that was probably something he didn't expect. He sent me a text and he said, "Oh my gosh, what a great guy Torin is, blah, blah, blah." And I just thought to myself, oh, I know. I figured the two of you would hit it off, but you must have, to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, I love having the conversations with all the customers, whether a 5-minute conversation with a local taxi, or the hour and a half, 2 hours conversation with somebody I've never met that we're going to the airport. In Chris's situation, I didn't realize at the time. I knew he was your caddy. You had mentioned that before I picked him up. What I didn't realize was that he had a background similar to mine in the theatrical background, whereas he actually has experience with improvisational theater, and so do I. And he also has written for a improvisational company based out of Chicago called Second City. Written for Second City.
And I did not know that.
And there are some incredible actors that have come out of Second City.
Right.
And I won't begin to name them, because if I get one or two of them wrong, but it's not Saturday Night Live, but it's pretty comparable to a Saturday Night Live. And for him to have written it, we had a great conversation. Yeah.
And he had, he also, one of his, very creative guy, one of his job descriptions over the years, and then now he's to say he's happily married. He lives in Bryn Mawr. He's got 2 children, one who is in theater. I'm sure he mentioned Sally.
That's right, yeah.
He worked on The Apprentice for a couple of years. Did he talk about that at all?
We didn't talk about The Apprentice.
Well, he had a catbird seat to history, not realizing it at the time, and now he looks back and he's full of a lot of poignant stories. And then you had the next day, you had the same situation with another friend of mine who I've been friends with since 1977, right after we both got out of college, lifelong friend. And different personalities completely, but I'm sure it was also an interesting conversation.
Exactly. In his regard, I got to learn the similarities that we shared with starting businesses, right? Where he had started his own business and had been running his own sales for decades. Where that piqued my interest how it started and the similarities there. So great conversations.
I don't know if he told you this or not, but I think his youngest daughter who's my goddaughter, is getting married next year.
Yep.
Did you talk about?
Yeah, we knew that. Yeah, we were, and so my daughter being married just recently, we also
Samara.
had that to talk about.
So it looks like it might be that she
Comes
gets
back to
married
the
here in
Weymouth.
Moore County. And so guess who he'll be contacting?
Well, that's fantastic.
You, and probably me as the
Sure.
wedding planner,
Sure.
boots on the ground here in Moore County,
Absolutely.
although I'll be out of my element. So you'll probably have a chance to see him again next year. So you also have the ability to relate to a lot of people on a different level, and you're actually in the catbird seat because you enjoy the banter, you enjoy the stimulation, and the different perspectives, because there are so many people with so many different perspectives, and it's sort of like right in your wheelhouse, I think.
It is right in the wheelhouse. I'll tell you what, because as a teacher
Yeah.
that has the experience of a career's time inside the classroom, but also not only inside the classroom, maybe particularly because of being a teacher that takes students onto the stage, so you get to know the peripheral community quite well.
Yeah.
I've now had the privilege of each subcategory in our community. Being able to get to know each subcategory, because as a teacher, you teach them all. And then as a person that is doing delivery and taxis, I might have students, or I might have, I get used to calling everyone students. I might have clients that need a non-emergency medical transport. I might have some that needs to get to the airport. I might have some that currently do not have a vehicle and just need to get to work. Likewise, I might have those that need some groceries because they no longer do shopping. And I might have some that need me to pick up their pharmaceuticals.
Let's come back in the second set, because Dorothy, we're going to go over on every set with Torin, because I can't be paper bound. It's just a conversation with him, and I'm sorry we're going to run late on every set. And we'll talk more in detail about Wright Time Deliveries.
As you need.
No, she will never edit it, right?
No editing.
This
if I
is
can help it.
This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Hey, I'm on the phone with Chris Pegg, who I referenced in the first set with my conversation with Torin Wright. And Chris is from Bryn Mawr. I've known Chris since the 1980s, and he had the dubious distinction or misfortune of being my caddy while I was at St. David's, and there was about a 16 or 17-year difference. And I think I was probably a bad influence on him, but he survived me. He's happily married, lives in Bryn Mawr, has 2 great young children, and he came down on this golf trip that we referenced. And Chris, good morning, and thanks for calling in and joining us.
No, Bill, thank you so much. What a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, Torin spoke very highly of you, and he kind of saved your bacon, didn't he? Because Torin said that, when you fly into Raleigh, it's kind of easy to get an Uber driver, but when you're leaving the Southern Pines Pinehurst area, not as easy. And we were able to connect with him that Sunday. You were leaving while you were teeing off at the Mid Pines golf course, and got you to the airport on time.
Yes, he was wonderful. Actually, he was a savior, because I think we were running a little bit behind on the golf course, and he was there on point exactly. So he got me to the airport safely and on time.
Well, in your conversation with him on the ride up to the airport, he shared something with me about you that I did not know, and that you both have a commonality, or you both have a common interest in improvisation theater. And that you actually wrote for Second City?
I did.
I didn't know that. Where have I been?
Yeah, no.
Asleep at the wheel.
Do that. No, I went. I took a job in the mid '90s. I was working on my master's in theater at Villanova University in the mid '90s, and I actually I received an opportunity to go work for an ad company out in Chicago. So I suspended my my graduate program in theater. I was getting my master's in theater, and I went out to Chicago to work for this ad agency. And when I was out there, I knew that Second City was out there, and so I just sort of like, I'll take a course, and so I ended up taking a course, and then as luck would have it, I was honored to be accepted into their program, into their I forget what. Gosh, Bill, it's got to be 25 years, but their observatory program, and so I went through it and did a lot of acting and did a lot of writing. For your audience that may not be familiar with Second City, it's sort of like a small farm league. I shouldn't say small, but a farm league for those that want to go on and write for television or film or whatever have you. And there's been some notable alumni there. But so I wrote and I acted with Second City, and then I ended up moving to New York. And before getting into film and TV up there, I taught and I co-directed a couple shows up in New York for Second City as well.
I didn't know that. I can see why you and Torin hit a lot of chords in your conversation with his 20-plus years in teaching and being a choral director and a production manager and touching a lot of people. I think I told you before you met Torin, he reminds me of the character in the Richard Dreyfuss character in Mr. Holland's Opus.
Yes.
And
great movie indeed.
Well, I mean, how rare is it that you can, meet with someone like him and get a ride the way you did? It just was serendipitous, wasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, our conversation was great. We talked about so much about what he's been doing for the past 25 years in theater and how they brought down, I think he brought down a Broadway actor to help him with Godspell. I think you had a production of Godspell in Moore County.
Did he say that was Bradley Gibson?
The name of the theater.
I'm sorry? Did he mention Bradley Gibson?
Yes, that's the name.
That's what he went to Pinecrest High School. Well, there you go. You have now another reason to come back and play some golf and reconnect with us. And Torin is, what I really like about Torin is he is entering another chapter in his life, and he's doing it with the same zest and gusto and honesty and credibility that he's known for. And he's left indelible impressions on a lot of people, a lot of students, like your daughter Sally, who wouldn't know him, but as she grows up, she's 12 now.
She's 12. She's going to be 13 at the end of the month.
And an actress, and the impressions that she gets from her coaches and teachers is no different than what Torin did with many of his students.
Yeah. Torin and I talked a lot about really what it's like to teach children in today's world. There's so much that's involved from the tech space, and a lot of kids are on screens, and a lot of kids get their entertainment, and I think so much is lost about performing in front of people, and live in front of people. And I think it's such, in my journey with Second City, I not only taught actors, but I also taught lawyers, I taught doctors, I taught people that were on CNN who were doing the weather, and so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Any names, but so, and it's really to feel comfortable within sort of your own skin.
Yeah.
I think it's so, there's a lot of fear that goes into improvisation because you don't know the unexpected, because you're asked to create a world around you when you get on stage that you just don't know what's coming. And so there's the old saying in improvisation where it's sort of the log line almost for it is yes and, where you're always accepting what people throw to you. So we had a great conversation about that and about how different styles of acting and how people go by it and how you break down scripts. And
your ride must have felt like it was only 20 minutes from Southern Pines to RDU, right?
I know. Well, I just hope his ears weren't bleeding from the amount of information that I was giving back to him on my experiences.
Well, it just all worked out really well, and I appreciate you. After all these years of communicating and you listening to some of our shows in the past, here you get to be on one, and in a situation where it's a win-win because we get to talk about a guy like Torin Wright and Wright Time Deliveries and what he's doing, and yeah, it was serendipitous, and hope to see you back down here soon. And I appreciate the time. And we're going to get back and talk with Torin in the second and third set of our show. And Chris, it's a pleasure. I'm really glad you were available and willing and wanting to talk about him and your experience.
No, and I think Torin has such a great grasp on what he has done for the past, I think, again, like 25 years, and how he has really embraced theater and how much it gives back to the community as well. So
yeah.
Just a great conversation with Torin,
Yeah.
and looking forward to coming back and playing more golf. If I could plug Southern Pines in Moore County, it's just absolutely beautiful down there, and it has such a Zen type quality to it when you get on those golf courses. So
Right.
I very much enjoyed it.
And we enjoyed having you. I will be in touch with you, Chris. Thanks for the call.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Bill.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you. Welcome back to our second set of All Things Moore County. Torin Wright is our guest for the hour. After living in Moore County for 26 years, Torin left a very distinguished career as a teacher and as a coach, as a mentor. And I think you can be a coach in education. It doesn't have to be athletic. And he has left impressions on lots of students who are today no longer students. Just like your children are, you have a son at App State who is, you're an empty nester, and your daughter Samara is married. So you pivoted, you have moved into Wright Time Deliveries, which we touched on in the first set, and you're full throttle right now. I mean, it is
a full-time job.
7 days a week.
I'm blessed. I always tell my customers it can be 7 days a week. I keep the calendar that way. Really, what I do is I work until we plan on taking vacation, then we vacation. So we have the capability of vacationing, but I do keep a 7 day week calendar going just so that the customers can be have someone to rely on. But if there's no business going on, it's likely going to be on a Saturday or Sunday. If I don't have any upcoming airport transports that I know of on Sunday, then I might take Saturday off.
Yeah.
But not every Saturday.
When people ask you what work schedule do you have to say whenever the phone rings is when I work.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. But I do laugh with my customers that know me, the regulars, and say, one of the gifts I gave to myself when I retire is I don't work at night. And so I'll work at night when there's an airport transport, but if it comes to local taxi deliveries, I'll let the Ubers take over that after dinner.
So a local taxi delivery, because you obviously provide a driving service to the airport.
I do.
Tell me about the
local side.
Yeah, tell me about the local side.
And this is on
this
is on the parcels and the people side, right?
Yeah.
And I'll get to the parcels momentarily, but since we've started with transportation, so taxis for locals would be those that are, there's a whole wide variety. It's anything that you can picture in our community. Perhaps because you've not really served this clientele, you may not realize that it's just a slice of our community. There are those clients that currently are struggling to have a vehicle for a variety of reasons. Maybe their vehicle broke down. Maybe they're just not able to have a vehicle at this time. Bottom line is a lot of them need to get to work, and they might start with Uber. Some people really like Uber. Others don't want to mess with Uber.
Why?
Well, maybe they don't know technology like we do. Right? You'd be surprised at how many people that still avoid using the smartphone. of course, if it wasn't for the smartphone, this business probably would have taken off. So, I mean, I thoroughly
Right.
rely on my smartphone, but a lot of people don't. And so there are people that just like to pick up the phone and call somebody and get help rather than pick up the phone and use an app.
How do they find you?
And so you can find me through Google. You can find me on Yelp. You can find me really through any of the social networks that share my information, or even some of the local taxi companies will recommend if it seems like this is more of a business that I can help with, then they would be necessarily manpowered to do so.
Okay. Can you share a little bit about some of your local experience, different situations that arise that you help facilitate that you may not have expected to come out of Wright Deliveries when you started it?
Sure. I'll give one on the parcel side now, okay?
Yes.
When I use terms such as non-emergency medical transport, okay, so I picture that being me helping somebody that is in need of getting to a doctor's appointment. That was one of the ministerial approaches to running the business that I had in the vision, is to be able to provide that ministerial approach to helping people out in our community that may not have transportation. What has come through the parcel side of that I didn't anticipate would be, as an example, I had a gentleman recently that was going through upcoming eye surgery. He called me weeks in advance and had mentioned that he was concerned what would happen post-surgery with his vision. And so he wanted to have me get to meet him, have him meet me, and then do a couple test runs, grocery shopping for him, so that when the post-surgery came, and if he couldn't see, we were already a well-oiled machine. And so I would do his grocery shopping for him, and then I would, bring the groceries on back. And so that was an aspect of the parcel side that I didn't expect. Another aspect of the parcel side that I didn't expect is just the clientele that didn't need me to take them to the doctor's appointment, but really didn't have a car and needed me to take them to the grocery store. And they like getting out and doing their grocery shopping. And these are, elderly that I'm talking about, but they also, enjoy the help getting the groceries inside the house.
So you have, there are, with our aging population, with the civic generation and the baby boomers now right behind them, there are other care services that are provided in Moore County, but you're not competing directly with them because yours...
I'm the crossover.
Okay.
I'm the crossover in that there is at least one business that I'm aware of that does deliveries for our county. Not so certain they do the shopping. They may, but I will do the shopping as well as deliver. But I'm the crossover. I know of nobody that does both transport for people, but also then transports anything parcel related. I'll even go so far as to, when on my website, when you talk about descriptions with what the business does, under parcels, the first thing it lists is commercial. And commercial being for businesses. You would be surprised nowadays that how many 1099 employees are out there that are willing to take the place of a UPS or an Amazon. And Sherwin-Williams is an example, and then pick up paint from Sherwin-Williams and transport it to a different city. Now, I haven't done that with Wright Time, but I do that with another one of my apps. But I have noticed with Wright Time, I won't name the exact companies, but I have with Wright Time delivered different ink products and such from local office supply stores to different areas and different portions of North Carolina. And so there's the commercial aspect of it that I didn't anticipate going into it.
Yeah. We don't have a very well-developed public transportation system here in Moore County. And unlike an urban area, New York City, for instance, there are many, many ways that people can get around. Here, people need an assist. Otherwise, if they're not driving, they need an assist.
And let me speak to just recently, in the pilot, there was an editorial that talked about that very need.
I saw that. Okay.
That we do not, as a community, have enough transportation for that population. And
Right.
I concur.
Right.
And I'm also thrilled that one of the things that my company was built to do. And
Right.
there's the thing, because I recognized the need that was just articulated by a different reader in the pilot and built my company to do that. I bridged the gap because one of the things in the community that said is you have limited choices. There is no public transportation, and if you take a different business, taxi as an example, it's going to be
Yeah.
a very high price tag.
Yeah.
Not such in my case.
Right.
I hear it all the time from my customers that hands down, this is the most budget friendly. And they use the words budget friendly. And I'm glad, because that's what I wanted to hear. And because they use the word budget friendly, and I've heard it enough, I too have started to sell that point, because truly I don't know of another company in our area that curtails to and wants to be the premier and is set to be and has delivered in being the premier budget friendly transportation and parcel delivery.
One of the things I liked about when we had that conversation that Sunday at Mid Pines, you were very upfront. You came right out and explained how you charge to get from here to RDU, and that you have probably worked this out carefully, price-wise, so that you can tell people right up front what they're paying.
Right. Do you mind if I talk about the pay structure a little bit?
I would, if you would like to, I would love you
Sure.
to.
So it starts at the local level, and then it just continues with the same formula away from town.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so at the local level, it's $10 a pickup for the first 6 miles, right? Which, if you multiply the rate per mile at $1.72 per mile, up to 6 miles, you're going to get right about $10.
Okay.
Okay, so $10 for the first 6 miles.
Okay.
There's not an additional $10 on the 11th mile. It's just now it's switching over to it's $1.72 a mile. And so when you multiply that by the 7th mile, excuse me, not the 11th mile, the 7th mile, you say 7 times 172, there's your total. If you had a 7-mile trip, just take 7 miles times $1.72, there's your total. So then if you say, okay, let's take you to the airport, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so to get from Pinehurst area to Raleigh-Durham Airport is usually about 70 miles, okay? So 70 times 1.72, you're going to come out of $120-ish, right? And this same, it doesn't make a difference. If you're going to go ahead and do the same thing to Charlotte or Fayetteville, just multiply the distance that you're being picked up. It's important that you understand it's where your house is or where your pickup location is. It's not where I start, it's where your house is.
Right.
So it's pickup to pickup to drop off, right? There's that's it. Now, if there's after hours, there is an upcharge, but I have gauged my upcharges with the regular local companies' upcharges and always make sure that I'm the lowest price.
How do you regulate your pricing, especially with the fluctuating gas prices?
Didn't worry about it, right? Didn't worry about it. Just went ahead and set up the pricing so that it, again, when you put yourself in my situation where you say, okay, you're drawing pension, right?
Right.
I started drawing pension prior to last year's gas prices starting to go out the roof. So I'd already set my prices. I just went ahead and did it anyways. And the prices, of course, came down a little bit by the time we got to fall. And, you know, they've fluctuated. But I don't set it based off of the gas prices. So on a common week when the gas prices change, and it doesn't affect anything that the customer will feel.
Your rates are based on one passenger or two? Does it matter?
Good question. So for local, it's 4 or less for the same price. That's the vehicles that I have. I've got 2 different vehicles that I use depending on the needs.
Right.
One, I want to talk about my smaller vehicle. As long as we don't have 3 or 4 golfers with hard bags, then I take the smaller vehicle. If we have hard bags for our golfers, then I take the large vehicle. However, local, It's the same price, no matter which vehicle I use, up to 4 passengers. And if we're going to the airport, because I've got to take the larger vehicle, if we go to the third and fourth person, there's an upcharge, but the first 2 people are. And so it's $20 per person upcharge to the fourth person if you're going to the airport with the third and fourth on the bigger vehicle.
And you're featuring as your auto transportation a 2019 Hyundai Sonata and a 2020 Jeep Gladiator.
That's correct.
So you've got 2 high-end vehicles.
2 high-end
for
vehicles,
comfort.
very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's come back in the third set again, Dorothy. We have run over, have we not? What a surprise! This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set with Torin Wright, Wright Time Deliveries. Great guy. I admire what you're doing. I love when people reinvent themselves. Not that you're reinventing yourself, but you're just taking what you've done in the past and you're expressing it in a different environment, maybe with a different age group.
And different size, right? I mean, I'm used to having a full class and a full choir of many people, and
That's
it's
right.
really nice to have one-on-one.
Right. Susan, is she your silent partner? Is she holding down the fort for you?
Susan, we've always been great partners together. Susan be my wife, right?
Yes.
So when it comes to it doesn't make a difference if it's her business that we're starting or her career we're supporting or mine.
Yeah.
We're always cheerleading each other on. So
Right.
I wouldn't have had the bravery to go into this without her support. Of course, last night she was saying she wouldn't be able to do this, and she's amazed that I can do this. But I'm like, it takes both of us, But yes, no doubt. And so she's been there from the setup. She's been there through the dreaming of the mission, what we're going to do with the vision, what type of community we're going to serve, and then also some of the customers that I have that seem to be perfect for her because she's in the early childhood programming, right? So that's where her degree is at. And then she's also phenomenal with the elderly. So when I've got different clients that I've got a conflict with, those that match her demographic desire, I have her work with them as well. And they get to know her a lot and they love her, and then they don't want anything more to do with me. I'm kidding.
Does she handle or do you handle your social media presence?
I do all that.
Okay. So you have made an impression out there. I saw you affiliated with the Best of the Pines. I saw a lot of very positive comments from people that know you and support you and believe in you. And it is a great the contest. It's good advertising. I don't think at the end of the day it always matters who the best is. I think what matters is you're part of the landscape.
That's correct.
And you're through osmosis. You're putting your name out there. And I always say in Moore County, 2 years is a lifetime here. If you do things right and you connect properly, as opposed to an urban area, you can actually build something very quickly, and you already have the built-in network.
And Susan and I were just talking about that. Well, whether or not we have the built-in network, we were talking about how fast a year has come and gone.
Yeah.
And the business continues to grow in all the right directions.
Right.
And so when it comes to the 2023 Best of the Pines, when I was told that I was nominated, I was just completely honored. That was not in the vision ever, let alone just after 1 year. I would not have anticipated that was something that people would recognize the need and the value of the service in just 1 year.
Yeah, and we just found out Southern Pines voted again, I think the 6th year in a row, for one of the top micropolitan areas in the country, actually. And that's changing as we're growing. I don't know that we're going to be in that category again after this year, but it's a community that has tentacles, and it's intimate. And I say sometimes jokingly it's incestuous, but that's a good thing, especially for a small business or an entrepreneur like yourself.
Well, I've definitely seen the value in it. When I moved out here in the mid-'90s from California, I did my degree in Arizona, but this area was just such a unique place at the time. This was pre-U.S. Open. The first U.S. Open came in '99, right? So
That's right.
At the time in '96 when I moved out here, there was no chain franchise restaurants whatsoever. It's
That's
all
right.
sort of grown since my time out here, and it was a beautiful small community there.
Yep.
We grow, but we still have the same uniqueness today, and I love being able to live here and then to find, as you mentioned, a new pivot where I can provide a need for the community that is out there that I was not even aware of until recently.
You mentioned the '99 Open. I moved here that year, and in February of '99, so I got to see that firsthand. 2024, the U.S. Open is coming back to Pinehurst. I mean, there is a great marketing opportunity for you, both locally and otherwise. Any plans, specific plans as to how you're going to position yourself?
Well, I anticipate the U.S. Open that is in L.A. this weekend. Now we've dated the program, but I anticipate the with the transition from this year's U.S. Open to knowing that Pinehurst is next, that
Right.
Our local businesses in general will start to place themselves in a position to receive those reservations that are upcoming. And so while I'm not in a situation where the advertising is on the website yet, when it's time and I see that the others in the community are doing the same, then I will be in a position to roll out some specials and then some details on how to utilize my services so that you can be booked in advance.
Yeah.
Because really what that's going to, that's going to happen next year, right? So it's going to be the week prior to and the week of, it's going to be a 2-week main event. And if you wait to get your services when you're a visitor coming into town, if you wait too long, you'll be the ones without reservations. And so no doubt it's going to be early on rather than towards the event.
Have you, are you familiar? I'm sure you're familiar with the Pinehurst Gazette.
Yep.
Have you ever been in there? Because that's more of a magazine.
I need to spend some more time in there. No, I've not been in there.
Yeah, it's great people. It's more than a magazine. It's almost like a souvenir that people pick up between now and next year. We've had a lot of success with a presence in the Gazette because it's something people take home with them. It's
Right.
not like a magazine they read and then they throw. This one they take home because it's like a keepsake. It may be a great landing spot for you, especially if you're pinpointing where you're going to maybe spend dollars and be
Right.
very careful and judicious about it.
Exactly.
That would be somewhere I would recommend. You have a website. People can go to your website.
I do.
And it is?
So it's my name and then delivery. So it's torinwright.com, and that's TORINWRIGHT.com/deliveries. And then when you get to the delivery page, there'll be the pricing, there'll be the about me, and there'll also be the overview with what the program, with what the company really curtails to, both in terms of how we deliver parcels and the clarification of how we taxi for people.
Yeah. When you set out to do this, you actually put a mission statement, a statement of values, and a vision.
Well, I can sum that up for you real quickly. Yeah, it's a legit business setup. So with the mission, the concept really simply is to be the best, if not the best, right up there with the best of the delivery taxi transports in terms of providing excellence when it comes to customer care, but also when it comes to customer satisfaction, not only with the way in which they're provided the service, but also the cleanliness of the vehicles in which services are provided. When it comes to the vision, budget friendly, just keep that in mind for every demographic. And when I say every demographic, that leads me to my vision statement, to my values, if you really will. Integrity. I always think of integrity. The only person that can take integrity away from you is yourself, right? So
Right.
integrity would be honor, right? Honesty. It would be one that's the last three that are super important to me would be inclusive, community, and family, in that order. Inclusive being to include every demographic, to every sub demographic in Moore County. That's one of the neatest things about Moore County is that we truly are a diverse county. And being a public educator, I got to see that. Being somebody now on the other side of public education, inclusiveness is huge. Community.
Right.
I want to be there for our community, and first and foremost, I'm a family man, and so I totally respect the families that we're raising and supporting in our community.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this conversation. I was very grateful that I was able to stumble upon what you were doing a couple of weeks ago, and it's perhaps we'll have another situation where you'll be back on again next year.
Well, I appreciate it. I'd look
Right.
forward to that.
Yeah, Torin,
Yeah.
it's always a pleasure. Wright Time Deliveries LLC. He's local. He's well known. A great guy, and people can call you and they can trust the process and the honesty and the integrity, as you say, and that's a big deal.
Let me say one more thing about the U.S. Open.
Yes.
Yesterday, cleaned out something in the garage. I went through a file cabinet, found a really neat picture from 1999's U.S. Open.
Okay.
Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus walking down the fairway together. Of course, Arnold's no longer with us, right? So what a unique opportunity. I look forward to seeing more of those unique pictures with different of our golfers in 2023, excuse me. 2024, not even knowing the stories that we'll be looking back on in 2 decades. So it's been really neat to live here through the 4 different U.S. Opens, and I'm looking thoroughly forward to the next.
Well, there's always an advantage when guys like you and me, we get to say, hey, we've known each other for 2 decades, so we have a perspective, and we've seen where Moore County has come over that time, and I think we have a greater appreciation for where we are than maybe some people who perhaps just moved here.
I
say,
agree with you.
Right?
Absolutely.
Best of luck down the road, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Torin. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week.
Appreciate it.